Novak Djokovic sees good problem after Eala's run in Aussie Open. Eala and her legion of Filipino fans are definitely making a big noise in the tennis world. This, after all-time great Novak Djokovic took notice of the Filipino sensation's main draw appearance in the Australian Open, with her matches in singles and doubles drawing big crowds and loud cheers. Djokovic, who holds the record for most Grand Slam wins with 24 titles, was well aware of Eala's glowing influence, which he said is a good problem. "I saw the other day with Eala. That's been a talk which is understandable. There's some players coming from respective countries, like she's coming from the Philippines, which is now a big deal," said Djokovic, who barged into the men's third round and will meet Dutch Botic van der Zandschulp. She's been the biggest ever tennis player from that country, which is a big country and there's a big interest. So things like that happen. You could argue that it was maybe a poor schedule and maybe they could schedule him on a bigger court, the 38-year-old superstar added. It was a response by Djokovic after a reporter asked about the event being too crowded, too corporate, too commercial, and too profit-centric at times. "Having too much crowd on this or any other tennis tournament is a very good problem to have. I think there are much worse problems," Djokovic stressed. "But again, it's a good problem to have, to be honest. Let's just imagine if there's a lack of people coming or that stands are empty. That's a bigger problem. I mean, this is great," he continued. Last Monday, Eala, 20, made her maiden Aussie Open main draw appearance where she ultimately suffered a 6-0, 3-6, 2-6 first-round loss to the hard-hitting American Alicia Parks. Eala, however, goes for a fitting bounce-back as a wildcard entry in the historic WTA 125 Philippine Women's Open slated January 26 to 31 at the Rizal Memorial Tennis Center in Manila. When Novak Djokovic spoke about a good problem, he wasn't talking about cracked rackets, aching hamstrings, or the relentless Australian sun that has tested champions for decades. This was a different kind of dilemma, one that arrives quietly, almost politely, before it demands attention. It was the kind of problem that only tennis, in its strange way of passing time from one generation to the next, can create. The problem had a name, Eala. The Australian Open has always been a place where legends defend their territory and dreamers knock on the door. For Novak Djokovic, Melbourne is sacred ground, a hardcore cathedral where history bends comfortably in his favor. Yet as the tournament unfolded, the noise was not only about his pursuit of more records, more silverware, more lines in an already crowded legacy. It was also about a teenager from the Philippines, swinging freely, smiling fearlessly, and playing as if pressure were an optional rule. Eala's run wasn't supposed to disrupt the established order. It wasn't meant to start conversations in press rooms or spark raised eyebrows among champions. And yet, there it was, undeniable. Clean ball striking. Calm under fire. A sense that she wasn't asking for permission to be there. From the outside, Djokovic watched what he has seen many times before, though never without interest, the arrival of belief. For a player who has built his career on precision, patience, and psychological dominance, Djokovic understands momentum better than most. He knows that tennis doesn't always announce the future with trumpets. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it shows up in the form of a young player who plays one brave match too many and suddenly realizes that the court doesn't care about age, ranking, or expectations. That is where the good problem begins. Because the sport needs this. Tennis survives not only on greatness, but on inheritance. On the idea that inspiration is transferable, that one champion's shadow can become another's shelter. Djokovic, Nadal, Federer, they were once the interruption, the uncomfortable newcomers, the problem for the establishment of their time. Now, as Djokovic stands as the constant, the measuring stick, the immovable reference point, he recognizes the familiar pattern forming again. Eala's success isn't a threat to him personally. It's a reminder that the game doesn't stop, even when records feel untouchable. For Djokovic, this is a good problem because it means the sport is alive, curious, and brave enough to look beyond its giants. There's also something deeply human in how he frames it. A lesser champion might bristle at the spotlight shifting. Djokovic, instead, smiles at the idea that young players are no longer content with admiration alone. They want relevance. They want wins. They want to belong now. Eala's run carries a different kind of weight. She represents a region still carving out space in elite tennis, a new voice in a traditionally familiar choir. That 2. Matters to Djokovic, who has long spoken about expanding the game's reach and making tennis feel less exclusive, less predictable.